All right, welcome to the Week 8 Biscuits and SEC preview show. I'm here with the Hammer, Boss Man Slim in the house. We're going to take out the trash from the weekend. We're going to talk about the dogs rolling, and we're going to preview this weekend as you can imagine. As you can see at the bottom, it says Trash Bandicoot. I am very proud of that, and I had to share that with the world.
Yeah, good to see you again, Steven. And I absolutely love the name. You nailed it.
Yep, I was a big fan of the Crash Bandicoot games growing up, so that's fantastic. Perfect play on words there.
Yes, thank you very much. Let's get right into it. The Ole Miss Tennessee game from this weekend. When, if you watch it, it was 59 minutes of just amazing football, where the crowd just absolutely willed Tennessee to stay in that game, and then 1 minute of just them losing their mind.
Yeah, it was fun to see that atmosphere again in Knoxville at Neyland, right? I mean, when Tennessee is good, that place is just it's one of the best venues in the SEC. And those fans are obviously passionate, as we saw. As at the end of the game, you had some fans just chunking golf balls at Lane, dumping popcorn on him. He's throwing the visor at the end, walking off the field. So while that was a little bit of an ugly scene, the rest of the night it shouldn't overshadow, how cool of an atmosphere that was. And then a big win for Ole Miss, right? I mean, Matt Corral looked good again. There was a few, issues with Ole Miss that kind of kept Tennessee in the game. And Tennessee also had, a touchdown that was called back that fans were pretty ticked about, which kind of led to the trash thrown at the end of the game. But overall, it was a great win for Ole Miss. Tennessee looks like they, might have something here with Josh Heupel. They may not have the personnel right now to compete with the Ole Misses, to compete at the top half of the conference. But Josh Heupel is going to be able to recruit off this, and once he gets his guys in there, it kind of looks like Tennessee's coming. To be honest with you, which is great in my opinion for the SEC. I think it's a good thing, to have Tennessee good. Again, it's just more fun. So,
Yeah, I agree with all of that. It was an awesome game, entertaining from start to finish. Even the very end, after all the trash was thrown, when you had Tennessee get the ball back with a chance, Hooker makes a play, gets hurt, Milton comes in and finally doesn't throw the ball, surprisingly. But yeah, it was a great atmosphere. Obviously, what happened with the trash was a shame, and it sort of overshadowed how good of a game and how good of an atmosphere it was, which is terrible. I feel for the 98% of Vol fans that were there and weren't throwing stuff onto the field, because it's a terrible look, and it's just something that you just can't do at a sporting event. And it is, like I said, it's now the story, which is unfortunate because Tennessee played a great game, especially Hendon Hooker. I mean, him and Matt Corral, that was basically just a quarterback duel. They were they're both of their teams leading rushers and obviously leading leading passers. So it was a great game. But yeah, in the end, a good win for Ole Miss. You go on the road, 100,000 strong in a night game, and come out with a win. That was an awesome atmosphere, awesome game, and I think Corral really just put the team on his back and was like, "We're not going to lose this game, and I'm going to have to. If I got to run it 30 times for nearly 200 yards, I'll do that." And he paid the price. I heard he's a little beat up this week, but yeah, just an awesome game.
Yeah, after the game, I'm assuming Joe Milton said that the PA announcer told him not to throw anything on the field, and he just took that advice outright for the game.
Right.
So, like I said, that atmosphere, I think the decibel levels got up somewhere around 116 or 118. The players described it as being a sound that you could feel. It's not even a hearing thing. You could just feel the noise. And honestly, it took Matt Corral having a Johnny Football like performance to save Ole Miss, because Ole Miss had all of their backup wide receivers in, their backup tight end, their third string left guard. Like half of the offense was gone for this game, and they were able to pull it out.
always good when you can get one of those. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, A&M knows that well. We've had a lot of injuries this year, so If you can still eke out wins, right, and have that next man up mentality, especially on the road in Neyland Stadium when the noise is like that. Backups are not really used to playing in environments like that, right? So if you can have your backups come in and still perform and get a win, that's huge.
Yeah, it's a maturing a development tool, even if you
Mm-hmm.
don't play very much to go into an environment like that. Let's move on real quick to the Georgia Kentucky game last week. Georgia just continues to take care of business. Whoever's in front of them, every opponent looks exactly the same. It's the dangest thing.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, and that game, I guess similar to really how I felt Auburn played. I did not think Kentucky played poorly at all. I thought they played a fine game. Obviously, maybe not their best effort, but I'm not sure how much better they can do just with the talent on their team. And Georgia just suffocates them. It was close at half, right? It was a one-score game at half, 14-7. And you come out in the second half, and Georgia just kind of takes control. They so far have just been that much better and more talented than every team that they've played. And that's not a discredit to Kentucky. They've got a lot of good players. And again, they played pretty well. It's just you're never going to get anything on this Georgia defense. You're going to have to go out there and take it and earn it. And so far, no one has been able to do that. And then offensively, I mean, Stetson Bennett and Georgia basically just do the same thing every week where they hand the ball off to three different running backs. They're not running like necessarily all over teams. They just get, 4 to 5 yards a pop, and then Stetson hits a play action here and there, and there they go. They end up at the end of the game with 30 or 35 points. So it seems like we're watching the same game over and over again. And frankly, until we get to Atlanta, I'm not sure anyone in the East is going to be able to get Georgia out of that game. I don't think anyone's good enough to force them out of that game plan. So we'll see. But it was a great game. I mean, both teams played well.
Yeah, I think kind of going to what Hank was talking about, it's really, you know, we're seeing a pattern here with Georgia, right? Their defense is suffocating, and they're going to take away your main weapon. Chris Rodriguez Jr. had 7 yards, right? I picked him to go over 59 and a half yards on prize picks because I was just like, oh, he can get 59 and a half. No, nobody runs on this Georgia defense, right? I should have picked the under big time on that. I messed that up big time. But we're seeing a pattern with Georgia, and we're also seeing what great teams do, which is impose their will on you, right? We are going to shut down your main player. We're going to shut you down on defense, and then on offense, we're going to do what we want to do. We're going to push you in the trenches. We're going to earn yards on the ground, and then we're going to hit a play action to Brock Bowers, and you're not going to be able to stop it. We're going to do that all game. That's how we're going to beat you. We're going to score 35 points, and you're not going to score more than 10. And we're going to rock you. So I think Georgia's a great team. We've been seeing it week in and week out now. Things aren't really changing there, and they're just going to keep rolling through this schedule until they get to Atlanta to play Alabama. On Kentucky's side, Kentucky, you're playing Georgia, just kind of helpless, right? They didn't play a terrible game, but Georgia is just that much better than everybody else in the SEC right now, at least on the eastern side of the conference. Alabama, I think, can challenge them. But it's Georgia. Alabama's a baby step below them right now. For Kentucky, I think, they could really end up going, 11-2? I mean, with this loss, the schedule lines up pretty well for them after this. So everything's still in front of Kentucky if they want it, right? So they should not be discouraged by this. Wildcat fans, shouldn't put their head down. Look at that schedule coming up and just take care of business these next few weeks. And this can be one of the great seasons in Kentucky history.
Yeah, I think that Kentucky Tennessee game is going to be fun for whatever reason. I just think that is going to be a lot of fun. But Georgia, this is my concern about Georgia. My singular concern about Georgia is I think they might be falling into that trap that they did a little bit last year, and that is the Stetson Bennett trap. You get comfortable with him; he can do all the small things. But the reason you needed JT Daniels to be effective is still there. Alabama can shut down that run. They can match you in physicality, and you need that big arm because Stetson's already had his chance with Alabama last year. We've seen that movie. JT was supposed to be the one that got them past Alabama. And it's a chance right now. They're falling into that trap of just that comfortable Stetson Bennett that's probably not national championship or SEC worthy team was.
Yeah, I would agree. I think exactly what you said. I mean, in these games, he looks really good. He looks like someone that, can get you where you need to go. But can he do that against Alabama, which obviously he didn't last year? But at the end of the day, I mean, and I have no idea what's going on with JT Daniels. It sounds like it's a different muscle strain or something every week. But the clock is ticking to me, because the longer this goes on, the harder it's going to be to give him that job back, because Stetson has played well. And just, I don't know if you want to put a kid into a situation where he's got one, maybe two tune-ups before Atlanta, and you don't really know what you're going to get with him. I mean, I'm sure he, plays well in practice, and he's played well in limited action, but I mean, at some point you got to play. You need reps. So I'm interested to see what happens. But again, the longer this goes on, the more it looks like it might just be Stetson and that running back room basically.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Yeah, I think you got this bye week for Georgia, which I think is hopefully helpful, right, for JT Daniels. I don't like you guys hating on my man Tombstone Bennett here. All right, this guy can play. He keeps putting wins on the board. Right, last year was last year. This year he's playing really well. I think to some degree, all that said, right, I think that JT Daniels is the man in Georgia, and he should be. I also think that he is a very good quarterback, and I think you're right. I think, if you wanted to win the Citrus Bowl, you go with Stetson Bennett. If you want to win a national championship, you go with JT Daniels. So I think that having this bye week now for Georgia comes at a good time. I'm looking at their schedule now. They've got Florida then, right, in the outdoor cocktail party, and then you've got Mizzou, and then Tennessee after that. So hopefully he is back by the Mizzou game, so that you get Mizzou, Tennessee, and then you get a cupcake, and then Georgia Tech to end the year. And then hopefully you've got 3 to 4 games where JT Daniels can get back in a rhythm, back in a groove, before you get Alabama, most likely, in Atlanta.
Yeah, should be a lot of fun. I'm interested to see what happens, because most everything is lining up for Georgia. And everybody that thinks we're making fun of Stetson Bennett or whatever they're doing, Stetson Bennett is a 12-0 quarterback this season. You could go 12-0 with Stetson Bennett. But it's that championship game and that playoff that it becomes iffy, because there's probably 2 teams in the country that can even beat Georgia.
The only thing I'll add to that is that we have seen a backup quarterback in Zach Calzada for Texas A&M beat Alabama this year. So this Alabama defense isn't the Alabama defense that we're totally used to seeing, right? There is some flaws there, but still, at the end of the day, if I'm a Georgia fan, I'm much more comfortable going into that game with JT Daniels than I am with Stetson Bennett.
Yeah, and I think you guys did a really good job in the RPO game and brought back the slot fade. I enjoyed watching the slot fade in that game. So, yeah, Calzada just threw off the back foot all arm. He just had a Steven Garcia type night. It just really was, and he's going to sell all kinds of insurance in the Bryan College Station area.
He'll never have to buy another beer.
Yeah.
Yep. I'll tell you that.
All right, let's move into week 8. We'll start off real quick. We're not going to break it down, but just to let you know, Arkansas is going to get back on track. They've got Pine Bluff this weekend. They're a 1-5 FCS team. Arkansas is probably going to jump back on that one. Jalen Catalon out for the year. That's going to hurt the Hogs, as they are probably going to spiral a little bit as this season progresses. But let's get into it here. LSU at Ole Miss, the 2:30 CBS game. Ole Miss is currently favored by 9 points. It's a game where they're playing a little gamesmanship with Matt Corral's injury, even though Matt Corral was in the post-game Tennessee press conference making jokes and having a good time. And it's like you have to do just the minimal amount of research to debunk this rumor. But whatever. Say whatever you want to say. It'll be interesting to see. I don't expect Matt Corral to run very much, because I do think he had 30 carries, so he's probably a little sore. So they're probably going to try and maybe John Rice Plumlee, a couple of snaps at quarterback. They do a little Wildcat stuff. But they're not going to take two off the field very much, and hopefully get some wide receivers back against LSU's mash unit. And Ed Orgeron saying, adios.
Yeah, I mean, this is falling apart for LSU, right? I mean, last week they somehow beat Florida when everything was going on in the background with Coach O. I think that is more on Florida than it is a good thing for LSU. I think, I was pretty high on the Gators early in the year, and Dan Mullen has really failed me on that one. He is not looking good. They got problems at quarterback, and that defense. Obviously, it might be time for Grantham to go.
Yeah.
So I think that was more on Florida than it was a testament to how good LSU can be this year. They still have injuries all over the place to all of their 5-star guys, right? Butte's out, Ricks is out for the year, Stingley's out for the year, and so is Ali Gay, right, the defensive lineman. So who's been out since like week 3. This is just a depleted roster right now. The wind is out of their sails now. The Coach O news is out. They don't know who their coach is going to be next year. It looks like they tried to run the ball right last week. They had the top game ever, right, for rushing yards. Crazy enough for LSU. I didn't even know who was running for LSU right at this point. I just kind of checked out from that because they don't run the ball anymore for some reason. Well, apparently they do now, but I don't think it matters this week. I think Ole Miss held Tennessee, who has a pretty good running game, to under 4.5 yards a carry, I believe. The Ole Miss defense isn't great, but they're better. They make plays when they need to, right? And so I think Ole Miss just outscores them. I don't think LSU has a defense. Florida, who did not look great on offense, put up 42 on them when other teams have held them, right? Kentucky, held them in below 20, I believe it was, or right at 20. So I think Ole Miss scores too much. Matt Corral is too much. LSU's depleted, and I think this is a good win in the end for Ole Miss.
Yeah, I totally agree. We don't need to get into the Coach O stuff. Obviously, I know, Stephen, you all have been talking about it on your shows, but I think what happened last week was exactly what you said. That was more on Florida than LSU. Now, give LSU credit. They obviously fought hard, which is, more than you can say in some previous weeks or seasons where it didn't look like they actually cared. They definitely cared on Saturday, and they went out and got a win. But offensively, LSU was running like the same 3 run plays over and over and over. And Florida, for whatever reason, just could not figure out the run fits. I don't know what Todd Grantham was doing. I don't know how, that Florida defense held Alabama to 31 or whatever, and then looked like that and gave up over 300 yards rushing to LSU. And that was just mind-blowing, the lack of adjustments on the Florida coaching staff part, defensively especially. And then, like you said, LSU defensively is totally depleted. Florida played 2 quarterbacks in the game. It seems like Anthony Richardson is the guy now, but they threw 4 interceptions combined between the 2 of them. That's not going to happen to Matt Corral. He's not going to throw 4 picks. He's not going to give LSU advantageous positions. So as long as you can just play, fundamental defense on LSU, you should be able to hold them to a couple touchdowns, hold them easily under 30 points. And I don't see LSU holding Ole Miss to under 30 points. So I think, this is a game where Ole Miss has way more to play for, and they're just a better team right now. Obviously, you mentioned it, Stephen. Ole Miss has plenty of injuries as well. Hopefully they can get healthy, but this is a mismatch right now. I think Ole Miss should take care of business, especially at home.
Yeah. Two things real quick. With Jake Springer coming back, he played against Tennessee with Ole Miss's defense. He allows them to do some normal defensive stuff and make it look like a standard 3-3 instead of the 3-2-6 Iowa State. So you can mix those 2 defenses together because of the physicality he brings. The other thing is Florida is 2-6 out in their last 8 games against Power 5 opponents. Their only wins are against Tennessee and Vanderbilt. Coach O got fired for performance. Florida has a worse record than Coach O over that span and lost to Coach O twice.
Yeah, it's interesting at Florida there. I mean, I heard somebody was talking about it. It might have been Josh Pate at Late Kick. I was listening to him a lot this week, and he was talking about you can kind of see it. He basically said that Mullen thought he was going to get an NFL job at the end of this year, or excuse me, at the end of last year, and was sold on it. And he started just kind of mailing it in and acting like he was going to get an NFL job. And you can kind of see that in his actions over the course of that last year, right? Just kind of the antics that were going on. He just kind of was being flamboyant. He was kind of all over the place, really, really arrogant. The rumors come out at the end of the year that he's trying to go to the NFL, and it doesn't pan out. And so now that it hasn't been out, he's kind of up a creek to some degree, right? The recruiting hasn't been at a level that you're used to seeing at Florida, and now the wheels are kind of starting to come off. And that record just shows you kind of what's going on, and the way that they've lost those games too, right? It is really not a good look, and Florida fans aren't going to tolerate that for very long.
No, absolutely not. Moving on, Mississippi State in Nashville to take on the Vanderbilt Commodores. 1 minute away from their first SEC win against South Carolina. Then they completely vandied the game. Mississippi State is a 20.5-point favorite. The over-under is 51 points. It's on the SEC network at 3 o'clock. So that's directly opposite the Ole Miss game. So this is a friends and family game. I think that is too many points for Mississippi State. Mississippi State generally does not blow out Vanderbilt for whatever reason. I think this could look a lot, honestly, like it did last week. And I expect Vandy to eventually turn the corner because I like Clark Lee. I don't think it's going to happen this year, but I could see Mississippi State winning this game by 10 or 14 points.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think 20 points for Mississippi State is way too much against anybody, frankly. I mean, they have not blown out a single team on their schedule, including Louisiana Tech, and then obviously they lost to Memphis. So I would not pick them to cover a 20-point spread on anybody. That said, they're a far better team than Vanderbilt right now. Obviously, the Bulldogs, took their lick last weekend against Alabama, but that happens when you play the Tide quite a bit. So I don't really fault them for that. I just think, they had a bad night, but going up against Vanderbilt, that this could be, Mississippi State's get right game, if you will, where I really don't think they'll struggle. They probably won't score a ton, but I could see them getting up into the 30s, and, Vandy might scratch out 10, 17, but I would not expect this game to be very close, at past midway through the third quarter would be my guess.
Okay. Well, Mississippi State, they got to enjoy it for a week because they had a transitive property win over Alabama via Texas A&M, and then got the brakes beat off them by Alabama. So I think that they're going to be up for this one. I think Mike Leach is going to have them ready for this game. I don't think they're going to overlook Vanderbilt. I think that Vanderbilt is bad, but I think in that locker room it's going to be, hey, we've got Kentucky, Arkansas, and Auburn coming up, and we need to get ready right now, and that starts with beating Vanderbilt. I'm going to disagree with you guys. I think that they're going to cover. I know that they haven't really shown that they can do that this year, but I think Vanderbilt is very bad. I think Mississippi State's a much better team than South Carolina is. I think Cowboy Will Rogers is a solid quarterback, and I think that he gets it done on Saturday night, and I think they end up covering. And I think that defense is salty enough to hold Vandy to very low point total. So I'm going to take Hail State to cover.
Okay. At 7 o'clock Eastern Time, Tennessee goes to Bryant-Denny Stadium in Tuscaloosa to take their lumps with Alabama. It must be the third Saturday in October. Alabama is a 25-point favorite. Over-under is at 67 points, and it is on ESPN. The bad news for Tennessee is it doesn't look at this point like Hendon Hooker is probably going to play. He might, but this might be like a Tyon Evans last week could play where they were playing games. But you're going to get beat by Alabama either way. You might as well just throw Joe Milton out there. Get a couple of weeks to get right. Come back after Halloween and just go.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see if Hooker can go. I think I was reading actually before we got on tonight, and he's kind of day to day, so we'll see if he gets to go or not. Um, if it is Joe Milton, if I was a fan at Alabama, I would be wearing a helmet to that game just in case he throws a rocket launcher into the stands, because he's sure as hell not going to hit any receivers. Um, but right now, I think Tennessee is looking better. They're looking better with Hendon Hooker. If it was me and Hooker can't go, I would be starting Harrison Bailey just to see what he can do. But Tennessee is looking better, but this is Alabama, and you're at Alabama. You're in Tuscaloosa. You're not going to get a win here. Alabama's on a warpath since Texas A&M, and I think that started last week when they beat Mississippi State 49-9. And I think Tennessee does not have. We talked about it earlier, talking about the Ole Miss game, where Tennessee is coming. Tennessee, Heupel looks like he's got them on the right track. He needs to recruit. He needs to get his guys in. Talk about them in the next 2 to 3 years being a really solid team, maybe even next year, and really trying to rise in the conference. But this year's not that year. The roster's depleted overall, and Alabama just has too many guys. It's just going to overwhelm them with talent. I don't know what the spread is, but I'll take Alabama by 20 or more.
Yeah, Alabama's favored by 25.
Yeah,
25.
it'll be close to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would pick them to cover this game. I think most likely I'm going to be picking Bama to cover the rest of the year, just because, like y'all been saying, it's basically it's that time of year. They had a slip up, did not play their best against A&M, and now they're going to win out. I would be shocked if they didn't. I saw a funny stat about this game. Not funny if you're a Tennessee fan, but they have not scored 21 points in this game since, I believe, 2003. So they've been held under 21 for that long. They still got a couple wins in there. It hadn't been that long since they beat them, but it's been that long since they scored 21 points. And if Hendon Hooker's not in the game, then yeah, they're not scoring 21 in this one either, because we've seen what Joe Milton can do. Just not pretty unless he figures something out in a week's time. Then they're going to be in trouble. And yeah, Bama's just they're really good right now. I mean, Will Anderson was totally unblockable last week against Mississippi State. Assuming he's finally 100% healthy, and he looked like it last week, I expect him to be in the backfield all day again. Um, and Tennessee, yeah, they just don't have the players. As long as Alabama doesn't overlook this game, which we know they won't. They enjoy beating the crud out of Tennessee every year, and I think they'll do just that. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if this looks similar to the Mississippi State game, because I think that's kind of what Alabama is going to do to a lot of teams here on the tail end of the season.
Yeah, I think for Ole Miss fans, if as long as you take care of business, your best hope for them taking a loss is at Jordan Hare Stadium.
Got to be.
Yeah, that's probably the one spot that they might slip up and drop a game. Let's move on to the last game of the night on the SEC Network. South Carolina at number 17, Texas A&M. Texas A&M a 21-point favorite. Over under is at 45. Good grief, that's a 1990s over under. I don't know what I think about that, being favored by 21 and the over under being 45. That's like a 34-10 somewhere in there, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know if I would necessarily take A&M to cover. They took care of business against Missouri. I think they deserve credit for that. That game was 21-0 at the end of the first quarter. It was they put it out of reach pretty quickly. But I don't know. Like you said, that's a pretty big spread. I think South Carolina has a decent defense. I would not expect South Carolina to do much offensively because they just haven't all year. And I do think A&M's defense has sort of turned a corner since Mississippi State, where they just didn't look right. It was just a weird night. Obviously, they didn't give up a ton of points, but they just couldn't ever stop them or get off the field. But against Alabama, I thought they played pretty well, about as well as you can, particularly forcing 2 turnovers. They had 2 turnovers again last week against Missouri. Missouri has been able to score for as bad as their defense is. Tyler Beatty and Connor Bazelak have been able to put up some points. So holding that team to 14 is not anything to, you know, shake your head at. So I don't think South Carolina's going to be able to get much. But you know, offensively, A&M really didn't do much last week against Mizzou other than hand the ball off, which is great when you're playing Mizzou. But I don't think they'll be able to do that against South Carolina. So I think A&M will win pretty handily by 14. You know, maybe 20, but that spread's a little bit too high for my taste.
Yeah, I think the spread's probably a little bit high, but not by much. I'm honestly, I'm a little bit worried going into this game, being an Aggie, and the fact that I haven't picked an upset all show, because this year is the year of chaos, as we've talked about, and there's some crazy upset that comes out of nowhere every week. But if there's going to be an upset this week, I don't think it's going to be this game, especially with the fact that South Carolina just announced that Luke Doty isn't going to be playing in this game. He's out for the year. So with Luke Doty out for the year and Colonel Zebulon Noland heading up the South Carolina offense at QB, I like Texas A&M's defense to keep that under control. I really don't worry about South Carolina's offense at all going up against A&M's defense. And then on the offensive side of the ball, I think kind of like Hank was saying with the defense at A&M, I think to some degree the A&M offense is turning the corner as well. And I think that the South Carolina defense is fine, but they're not that good. I think A&M, if they don't cover, is going to come darn close to it. And I wouldn't be surprised to see A&M in the high 30s, low 40s, and South Carolina 17, something like that.
Okay. All right. This has been the Biscuits and SEC Week 8 preview. Guys, it's been a pleasure. Go enjoy a nice weekend of college football. Oh, before we get off the phone, I know this is Biscuits and SEC, but let's do Biscuits and ACC. Pittsburgh or Clemson?
Ooh, I was talking to a buddy about that this weekend who went to Clemson. I think I might take Pitt. It has been ugly at Clemson this year. That offense is not playing well, and Pitt can score the ball. And Clemson, their defense is good. They're a championship level defense. Their offense is the one that's been the problem. But I don't think that Clemson's defense can hold Pitt to a low enough point total in order to win this game, because I don't think Clemson's offense can do anything.
No.
Yeah, I totally agree. You know, I get nervous anytime I pick Pitt to do anything, because they are always just ripe for a massive letdown, which they've already had this year, losing to Western Michigan, which makes no sense when you look at the rest of their schedule. But, you know, Kenny Pickett is good. And, yeah, Clemson, you just sort of keep waiting for their offense to find something, and they can't. You know, that game in the Carrier Dome last weekend was pretty ugly. They're really not improving at all. So I think Pittsburgh will take this one, especially because it's at home for Pittsburgh. So, you know, at least that'll be a good atmosphere, even though, you know, Clemson is unranked. It'll be a big game for them. I'm sure their stadium will be full and their crowd will be into it. So yeah, I think this is Pitt's game to lose, and I'd be surprised if DJ and Clemson figured out a way to score enough points to win.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the ACC championship game of Wake Forest or NC State versus Pittsburgh. I mean, it's all just setting up ACC. That's the most ACC title game you can think of.
It's hilarious.
Yeah,
It really is.
It's crazy. But guys, thank you very much. We'll see you next weekend, and we'll talk a little football and get ready for Week 9. But thank you.
Can't wait.
Awesome.
Thanks, Steven.
Steven.
All right. Take care, guys.